This is my list of the top 10 San Francisco Giants in history, the all-time greatest players to suit up for the San Francisco Giants. The Giants have had some of the greatest players in Major League history. Post-Bochy, that's what we're in, the post-Bochy era, has been a hard time for Giants fans. So let's look back at some of the greatest players San Francisco has seen. Now again, this list does not include New York Giants, so no Christy Mathewson, no Mel Ott, no Carl Hubbell. A few quick honorable mentions: Bobby Bonds, Matt Williams did not make this list. As popular and loved as Tim Lincecum is, he is not on this list, nor is Matt Cain. Let's start with number 10. Number 10, Will Clark. Played from 86 to 93 with the Giants. 5-time All-Star. He had one Gold Glove at first. Number 22. Just a great hitter. Not known for his power, but something we don't have a lot of in the modern game because of the home run hitting. But Will Clark was just a pure hitter from the left side. He was that way for his whole career. And during that 1980s to the early 90s, pre-Bonds, Will Clark was the best Giant. It certainly deserves to be on this list. At number 10, he was also the 1989 NLCS MVP. The Giants fell short to the Oakland A's in the World Series, the Bay Bridge Series. Will Clark was the best player on the 89 Giants. Now, number 9 is Jeff Kent. And it depends what era you grew up with. But for me and my generation and my peers, Jeff Kent was a huge deal. He only played in San Francisco for 6 seasons, but what a great 6 seasons it was. 3-time All-Star. He was the MVP in 2000. And I would argue the greatest trade in the history of the San Francisco Giants, because Matt Williams, a great Giant, was sent away to Cleveland, the Indians, and the Giants received at that time Jeff Kent, who was not the star he would become. Brian Sabean was able to trade Matt Williams at the end of his prime for Jeff Kent entering his prime. One of the greatest offensive second basemen in history. 297 career average as a Giant. 175 homers. He was a second baseman that really gave you corner infield or first base production at second base. And he raked at Packbell Park. I mean, a pitcher's park all the way. He was Barry Bonds' greatest teammate. I would take him over Matt Williams as Barry Bonds' greatest teammate. Obviously, the two of them didn't get along, but they were great together. One of the greatest duos in San Francisco Giants history. And you could put his 6 seasons up against any second baseman of the modern era. They were that good. Criticized for his defense, he'd never be confused with Roberto Alomar. However, he was never moved off of second base. He worked hard on his defense. He was a solid defender. And of course, the highlight of his career was the MVP season in 2000. And the Giants, they never won a World Series with Kent, but he helped lead them, along with Bonds, to the 2002 World Series. They lost in 7 games. And after that season, the Giants would win 100 games in 2003. But they were not the same team without Kent. They were never the same. They attempted to replace him with Edgardo Alfonso and Ray Durham, a combination of players. But there was no replacing Jeff Kent. And he's someone that deserves strong Hall of Fame consideration. Yeah, never linked to steroids, PEDs. Jeff Kent is number 9. Number 8. Gaylord Perry pitched with the Giants for 10 seasons. Only a 2-time All-Star. But he's always included among the lists and the rankings and the all-time greats for the Giants. Great ERA, sub-3 ERA. And, you know, whenever you talk about the Giants lists, it ain't boring. Between Perry and Barry, this is one of the most controversial lists you're going to get. And he's one of the most controversial players of all time. Gaylord Perry, he threw the spitter. He was famous for the spitter. He also threw the puffball. Yeah, I said that right, the puffball. During the 1960s, Marichal and Perry formed a superb duo at the top of the Giants' rotation. So why is he not higher on the list? He pitched for 8 other teams during his career, and it was quite unusual for his time. And he never won a Cy Young as a Giant. Both of his Cy Young awards came with other teams. Number 7. Madison Bumgarner, the greatest left-handed pitcher in San Francisco Giants history, 2009 to 2019. Man, we could do just a whole episode on Bumgarner alone. As Bumgarner, it was brief but brilliant, legendary. No words like that get thrown around, but he is a legend for what he did in the postseason. We'll get to that, but it's not to say he wasn't good in the regular season. He was a 4-time All-Star, but he will be remembered for what he did in the postseason. And that postseason performance in 2010, 12, 14, and even 16 is enough to earn him a place, and a good place, on this list. The 2014 season was unforgettable. Due to pitchers being babied and coddled with pitch counts, we'll never see something like what Bumgarner did again. He was an old school player, and he wanted to pitch in the big games. He wanted the ball. And when he jogged out of the bullpen in the 5th inning of Game 7 of the World Series on just 2 days rest, and he went the distance, and you'll never see something like this again. I mean, that was one of the most manly, can I say, heroic moments that you're going to see in sports, professional team sports. And he was known for having a great cutter, a cut fastball that would go right on the hands of right-handed batters. And what I appreciated was what would be the final batter, Salvador Perez, in Game 7. He just kept going inside, 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 challenge, 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 right on his hands until he gets him to pop out. Again, 2 days rest. He threw a complete game in Game 5. He pitched 5 shutout innings in relief. Madison Bumgarner. Number 6, Orlando Cepeda. One of the great Giants from the 60s, and there is no shortage of great Giants from the 60s. 6-time All-Star, bat .308. Just someone who was a great all-around hitter. He had power, he could hit for an average, but the challenge with Cepeda was, where do you put him? Because the Giants also had Willie McCovey. So as much success as Cepeda had, as great of a player as he was, he would eventually be traded in his prime to the St. Louis Cardinals. And you ask again, similar to Gaylord Perry, why is he not higher on this list? Because he was traded in his prime, and the season, the 1967 season, his first full season with the Cardinals, he won the MVP that season. But even with a career that was not very long in a Giants uniform, he made he left a lasting impression, and he is still best known as being a Giant, even though he didn't win the MVP. He didn't win a World Series like he did with the Cardinals. But everyone identifies Cepeda as a Giant because he played first base, he played outfield. It's just a shame they didn't have the DH. And I don't like the universal DH, but the Giants sure could have used the DH. So they could have kept McCovey and Cepeda together. That they had to make a choice. Number 5, Buster Posey. A career that was different because he was a catcher, and it was also another short career. And we always have to make these calls in sports of how we rank players or what you value. Sustained excellence or dominance, brief, short dominance. And it's going to be very interesting when you consider Posey's career in the Hall of Fame, as we already have. Some people think he's absolute lock. Some people feel his career was too short. I'm not getting in that debate today, but he certainly deserves to be here and have a high place, even in the top 5 among San Francisco Giants. All-time San Francisco Giants. Because Posey succeeded in every aspect of the game. 7-time All-Star. He came back from a terrible injury in 2011. He was Rookie of the Year. He returns from basically missing almost the entire season 2011 to being an MVP and winning the batting title in 2012. He was just an excellent hitter. Not a big power guy. We talked about that with Will Clark. You could say the same thing about Buster Posey. Not known for having big power. He could come through with some big home runs. Just think about the grand slam he hit off Matt Latos. The grand slam against the Reds in 2012. Or the opposite field homer he hit off Walker Buehler in 21 in the playoffs. He was someone who could use the whole field. He was intelligent. I mean, I think if we're going to mark one thing about Buster Posey, or maybe I'd say 2 things about Buster Posey. I'd say his leadership and his intelligence. Even above the actual skills on the field themselves. It's those intangibles. But you can see all the awards he won. Rookie of the Year, MVP, batting title. He won 1 Gold Glove. He was an excellent receiver behind the plate. He was great at throwing runners out. I mean, a really excellent defensive catcher. And the question is, well, why didn't he win more Gold Gloves? It's very simple. Almost his entire career overlapped with Yadier Molina. And best defensive catchers of all time. I'm not going to rank them today, but the ones that come to mind, Yadier Molina's got to be a top 3 catcher of all time, right? Defensive catcher of all time. Johnny Bench, Ivan Rodriguez, Yadier Molina. He was a complete player. Between his offense, his defense, and he's just someone that had the respect of the staff immediately. He's someone who just stepped in day one and was one of the best players on the team. And it's no mistake that while Posey didn't play along, he could say something that all the other greats on this list, at least if we're talking about offensive skill, everyday players, can't say, was he won 3 World Series. He won 3 World Series in 5 years, and he was at the very center of that. There's a darn good reason why they won those World Series was because of Buster Posey. The batter, Buster Posey. The leader, Buster Posey. The catcher. And you could even say the partnership between Bochy and Posey. Okay, number 4. Willie McCovey. Willie McCovey is one of the greatest left-handed power hitters of all time. 6-time All-Star as a Giant, 1969 MVP. He also won Rookie of the Year. He had 469 home runs as a Giant. And as great as his numbers are, the steroid era, no doubt, affects the way a lot of people look at someone like McCovey. McCovey didn't play in an offensive ballpark. He played in a tough-hitting ballpark, yet he put up the numbers that he did in San Francisco. When he retired, he was second all-time in home runs by a left-handed batter, only to Babe Ruth. And Bob Gibson called him the scariest hitter in baseball. Bob Gibson was about the most feared pitcher in baseball of his era. And one of the most intimidating pitchers of all time. And the Giants decided when it came time to make a decision between McCovey and Cepeda, they went with McCovey. Cepeda, the better all-round hitter, McCovey, the better power hitter. And they had the 2 great Willies. Mays and McCovey. I mean, who's a better duo all time? Ruth and Gehrig? That's about it. Than Willie Mays and Willie McCovey. Number 3. Juan Marichal. Pitched from 1960 to 1973 as a Giant. 10-time All-Star. 238 wins and a 2.84 ERA in those years with the Giants. And somehow, he's overlooked. Somehow, he is not in the conversation among the great right-handed pitchers in history. I mean, known for that high leg kick. He was overshadowed by great pitchers in the 60s like Bob Gibson and Sandy Koufax, who had great postseason success. For Marichal, he just didn't have the opportunity to pitch like they did in the postseason. But what a career. Regular season numbers were quite comparable, very close to Gibson. Not as many strikeouts, but nearly as effective. A true workhorse. 244 complete games thrown in his career. 244. And the most well-known game of his career was the game where he outdueled fellow all-time great Warren Spahn in a 1-0 victory that lasted 16 innings, and he pitched all 16 innings. Number 2, Barry Bonds. Barry Bonds spent 86 to 92 as a Pittsburgh Pirate. The Giants signed him in his prime. And I know the first thing people are going to think about are the steroids. But Bonds had those years in a Giants uniform before the steroids. And he was, before the steroids, one of the greatest and most complete players in baseball history. The only thing he lacked was a great throwing arm. He could hit for average, hit for power, run, and he was an outstanding defensive left fielder. A Gold Glove outfielder. I can give you the stats. He bat .312 in a Giants uniform. He hit 586 home runs in a Giants uniform. 12-time All-Star. 5-time MVP. 2 batting titles. And the Giants never ultimately won a World Series with Barry Bonds. They had great years, and he was right at the center of the Giants remaining in San Francisco. And what made Pac Bell Park when it opened was other left-handed hitters, power hitters, their careers died at Pac Bell Park. Barry Bonds could hit at Pac Bell Park, and you always had to watch him. You always had to see, okay, what's going to happen with Bonds? And a lot of times, there were the walks. There were the intentional walks. He is the greatest baseball player I've ever seen. And we could talk about the steroids. That's not the point today. One of the greatest eyes you'll ever see at the plate. One of the most disciplined batters ever. And the Hall of Fame is not the Hall of Fame without Barry Bonds. A top 5 player in Major League history. And he's only topped by one player. Number 1, Willie Mays. He's with the Giants from 1951 to 1972, who was the complete 5-tool player. In center field, the greatest center fielder of all time, the greatest everyday position player there has ever been. When we talk about Babe Ruth, we take into account that Babe Ruth was a great pitcher before he was in the lineup every day and played in the field. Putting Babe Ruth aside, Mays is the greatest. Hit for average, hit for power. He could run. He was as good as it got defensively in the outfield, and he had the arm on top of it. Mays leads the Giants in so many categories. All-time hits leader, most career home runs, most gold gloves, most all-star selections. It wasn't just the production. He made the game enjoyable. He enjoyed the game. And that was something that got through to the fans. Playing the game with joy, playing it with a certain style. And I'm not even talking about the things that drive me crazy about the game today. The bat flipping, the accessories, all the things that players wear. No, playing with joy without bringing attention to yourself. And Mays did everything like Bonds in a Giants uniform. He did everything except win a World Series in San Francisco. He won a World Series in New York, the New York Giants. But that's what also makes Mays unique of anyone on this list is he started out in New York. But we all consider him a San Francisco Giant because most of his career was in San Francisco. That was one of the reasons, though, in some ways, I've heard over the years that fans actually liked McCovey better because McCovey spent his entire Giants career in San Francisco. And Willie Mays breaking in New York, winning a World Series in New York. But the Say Hey Kid, Mays, is the greatest Giant, the greatest outfielder, a one-of-a-kind player that you're not going to see again, and well-deserving of having the statue in front of the park. If anyone's going to have a statue in front of Pac Ballpark, it's Willie Mays, as it should be. And the address, 24 Willie Mays Plaza, is where the Giants play. So that's my top 10 list of San Francisco Giants of all time.